Welcome to today's video. We're going to be talking about our experiences, what?
Just one experience.
One experience with the Haunted Mansion. We went and saw, it's been a little bit since we saw it. We saw it August 5th on my birthday. But just wanted to share with you our thoughts and opinions. Not necessarily a detailed review. There might be some spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, I would go see it first and then watch this, but yeah.
And my hair is not in honor of Haunted Mansion, although it does talk about a time period that this hair would be from, but I was doing things for reenacting purposes, so that's why my hair is crazy.
No, you did your hair just for this video. But yeah, Haunted Mansion. So I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I did too.
I thought it wasn't really a scary movie. It wasn't really, well, it was kind of comedic. There was comedy in it.
I think it was definitely somewhat lighthearted, although it did deal with some very heavy material in relation to death and dying, and especially losing people that you love in very tragic ways. Which I felt like they really handled those topics for those characters very well, especially because it dealt with it from a child's perspective and an adult's perspective in a way that I don't think we always think about. So I thought that was very well done. But yeah, I'm not a big horror movie fan, so I went into this with a little bit of apprehension. I'd heard some rumors that there were some jump scares and things like that. There weren't any. The only jump scare we had was because a 6-year-old knocked over a metal bowl of popcorn in the theater.
Yeah, we were all like,
yeah.
But overall movie experience was nice. I mean, we went for breakfast. We went to a theater where you can order a meal.
Flicks Brew House.
Yeah, Flicks Brew House. So it was fun. I did feel like the children next to us were a little young.
Very young.
For the movie.
Very.
The movie itself was fine. Mm-hmm. I don't think it would have really scared them or anything. But some of the trailers I felt like were maybe not 6-year-old friendly. But it was PG-13.
Yeah, it's a PG-13 movie. They did come with their dad, and all parents have control and say so on what their kids see. Based on the reaction that the children were having, though, it obviously was not a good choice, but I think that's a mistake on the dad's part. There's nothing you can really do about that. But I think it had a PG-13 rating because of the ghost and the pretty heavy topics of violence. But outside of that, I don't think it really warranted a PG-13 rating.
No, probably not.
There just really wasn't anything in it that I would be uber concerned about for an extremely young audience. But I would say definitely ages 10 and up, maybe, or 11, more of that middle school range.
Yeah, the only reason they bothered me is because the one little kid kept talking, and I don't know if the dad was hushing her or not, but she just kept talking, and that was annoying. I tend to get annoyed at people in movie theater pretty easily, though. So I knew that I get annoyed at people. So my biggest issue, and the only reason I even brought it up, well, one, because the popcorn spill, which it was no big deal. Like, that was accidental.
It was so hilarious. All of us jumping.
Yeah, and it happened at a good key.
It was a very key moment.
Yeah, it was good. But I did have a couple times where I was turning my head to hear, because I hear better out of my right ear than my left. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I was turning my head like this because all I was picking up on was this 6-year-old talking instead of what the characters are saying, because there were some quiet parts in it. So, but that's what irritated me, though I held it together. Mm-hmm. But the movie itself, I thought it was worth our money.
Yeah.
I mean, worth our time and everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you've if you've seen the previous Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy, this is nothing like that. It is a whole different movie, a whole different concept.
I'd say it's better.
Yeah, it's way better. I would rewatch this one time and time again. I don't like rewatching the Eddie Murphy one. I just think it's corny and cheesy. And I was also just not, if you've seen that version, I was not a fan of the storyline that they put with that version, of this ghost human pining after his wife, who looks very much like the previous wife. I mean, it didn't read well, and I was never a fan of it. But this newer version, I felt like it was more logical. It was more realistic. There was a purpose to everything that happened. I also felt that this one followed the original Haunted Mansion storyline a little more, or at least had a lot more to do with the ride, originally in Disneyland and then in Disney World. But there were a lot of nods to the ride. There was a lot of nods to those storylines and those triggering things.
Yeah. So firstly, I did enjoy the Eddie Murphy's one. I didn't think it was really well done or great or anything. I wouldn't consider it a classic or anything, but I enjoyed kind of the dumb comedy elements of it.
I hated it.
Yeah, I mean, it was stupid, but I enjoyed myself when I watched it.
Yeah. And I think also, like, the history person in me enjoyed this one much more because they included so many kind of historic tendencies with it. You know, like, they go and search for, you know, a historian that's well versed in the history of the area, and it felt very much like National Treasure, which I love that series, movie and series. But I felt like with giving it more of like a classic historian type angle to it, that made for a better movie. But that's also just because I like movies like that.
I do think it was 100% better. I don't think there's any argument in that. I still thought the Eddie Murphy one was fun. Stupid, but fun.
I mean, the only other thing I would say is that there's, because I've been asked about this by other people online, of, you know, if you haven't ridden the ride or if you haven't seen the previous movie, would you understand this movie? Absolutely. I feel like it was written in a way that if you've never ridden the ride, if you've never watched the other movie, you're not missing anything. However, if you have ridden the ride, there's a lot more appreciation, I feel like, that goes into the movie. But it definitely is very much a standalone film. You can get by with not having had anything to do with the Haunted Mansion before.
Yeah, I would say if you've not been on the ride and then you go see this movie, and then I would make an effort to get to Disney. Go see what the ride is, because I think you'd really appreciate it either way.
Well, and go to the Disneyland ride, not the Disney World one. I feel like this movie really hit on the Disneyland ride more than Disney World. And if you are not Disney people, if you've never been to Disney, so Disneyland is the original, obviously, and then Disney World was made later, but it's also bigger, more space, and they're still expanding all that stuff, right? But the Disneyland has all the classic originals, and they are not very different, but they are different than what you see in Disney World. And so, for example, in the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland, there's an actual elevator, whereas Disney World has no elevator. So it's just an optical illusion. And they reference that in the movie. So, like, there's stuff like that, like, might not make sense. But it's not a huge deal. But I would definitely say, like, if you have to pick one of the two to go to understand the movie after you see the movie, go to Land first before World.
Yeah. And I don't know a lot about the Disney parks. I think one of the parks it might be it's either in France or I mean, there is a park in France, but it's either the one in France or Japan. They have a haunted mansion, but it's not ghost related because it's just kind of a creepy house. So if you're in a different country, I don't think this movie was based upon any of the other rides. It was mainly, like she said, the Disneyland version. But I'd still like to go to these other parks at some point in my life. But it's hard to get out of the country. Well, it's not hard. It's expensive to get out of the country.
And we broke.
Yeah. But, so yeah, I thought it was really good. I would definitely recommend watching this for sure.
It was really, really good.
I'd say it's a good family-friendly movie, too, for the most part. As long as your kids are okay with death talk, or if you've had that kind of discussion, like grandma went to a better place or whatever, or grandpa or whatever the case might be. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. As far as rating go, I mean, I don't usually rate stuff, but I would just say it was good. I'd give it an A.
I was going to say like a 4 out of 5.
Yeah. 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect. Something also that I was going to mention, the Hatbox Ghost, the villain in this movie. So he was at Disneyland, of course, and I feel like he was at Disney World at one point, but then they took him out or something, and then they were going to put him back in now that this movie came out. So I think they're going to match up a little bit more with some of the similarities, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. We haven't been to the parks for a few years, so. But yeah, overall, even if you're not a Disney fan, I would say this is still a good movie.
Yeah,
I think you can still enjoy it.
Yeah, it's definitely not your typical Disney movie. It's not princesses and all that stuff. It's very much just people trying to figure out how to survive a haunted house.
Yeah.
Without blood, guts, and gore and being chased by chainsaws and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think the actors all did a really good job, especially the young boy. I thought he did a really good job. Yes. I'm hopeful that he'll maybe start a career in acting if he so chooses to, because it would be cool to watch him.
He's already been in a few things.
Has he?
Okay. Not a whole lot. I think this is only like his second or third kind of bigger item, but he's been in a few, smaller TV shows and small budget movies. But I definitely think he definitely has a career in this field if he chooses to go that route. And I hope he doesn't get corrupted, because he seems like a good kid, especially doing some background research on him, and from videos I've seen, he's very well spoken for his age. I will say that was one of the complaints though that I had, was that he reads older than what they said he was. I think they said he was like 9.
Yeah.
Like 8 or 9 in the movie, and he's, I think in real life, like 11 or 12.
But he acts like he's 15 or 16.
Yeah, he is so mature. Like, just everything about him is so mature.
Even interviews of the kid.
Yeah, he's
just
very mature.
Very smart, very educated, like as far as like scholarship wise.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know what his education. He just speaks like he's
so well.
Yeah, he speaks brilliantly, better than I do. And he's only like 11, but yeah, he seems like he's a lot older. But yeah, it was fun. And then what's the short white guy?
Oh, Danny DeVito.
Yeah, I like that actor. I don't think I've seen him in a lot. And like you all know from Game of Thrones, I'm very bad with names. But I've seen him in some things, and I always enjoy his.
He's your stereotypical hilarious Danny DeVito. Like it's your usual Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to see him out and about doing things still, because he is getting up there in years. He's a lot older than he reads, but yeah, it was nice to see him. And Tiffany Haddish, kind of making a comeback there. After,
was she the mom?
No, she was the voodoo priestess.
Oh, okay.
But she's had some negative press, so it was nice to see her not be. She still very much was Tiffany Haddish, very comedic, but it's nice to see her doing something a little bit less Tiffany and more like what the script says.
Was less Tiffany? I don't think I've seen her in much.
Well, she's just very over the top. You kind of felt it a little bit, when she was like real, like that's very Tiffany Haddish. But like the rest of the movie, I felt like she actually tried to get into a character versus be Tiffany Haddish every
Yeah,
moment.
yeah. No,
Rosario Dawson was the mom.
Okay.
And I mean, she's usually pretty good. I loved the costume choices that they had. Like, she's very much a history bounding mom in that movie, and lots of 1950s and 1940s outfits and nods, and I really liked that element of her character. Like, she did not shy away from the fact that that was her personality. So that was really fun.
I guess it's funny we went the whole video without mentioning this, but a little bit about the plot. So this family, this mom and son, move into this old haunted house. They don't know it's haunted. You know, the son's a little uneasy about it, but she's like, no, this is our home, we're going in. And then they realize that there's ghosts and, you know, paranormal activity kind of stuff, but I mean, it's visible ghosts and stuff. And then so they leave, but then the ghosts follow them and haunt them even wherever they go, which draws them back into the home, and they're telling them to go back to the house. And so then they get other people involved to try to figure out what's going on with the ghosts, and then the whole plot is to, you know, figure out what's going on and then see what they could do about freeing them, you know, from
the haunting.
Yeah. So, but like, I mean, you don't have to know that going into it. You can pick up on it pretty easy. It's like an easy read. It's an easy movie to watch. Like, you don't have to know a bunch of the backstory to get stuff out.
And
I
felt like they were pretty good at explaining kind of this is how they get to this point. I did think the very, very beginning of the movie when they first arrive at the house, that went really fast. I'm like, oh, we're 10 minutes in and we're already here. Okay.
Yeah.
But the rest of the movie I felt like was very well paced, and so you really kind of get a chance to get to know each of the characters and understand kind of their motives and what gets them stuck in the house, which is good. I was going to say Jared Leto is, I mean, he's typically good in most movies that he's in, but even more so in this one. I
was he the main guy?
He's the bad guy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I know he gets a really bad rep. Definitely not an actor that, like, if I ever ran into him on the street, that I would necessarily want to spend time with. But I thought he did a pretty good job in this. Like, honestly, I didn't remember that he was in the movie until after I went back and looked up who was in the movie, and I was like, oh, that was him? Okay. Which, you know, means he did his job well. So.
Yeah. But overall, I would definitely recommend it, and yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. If you like seeing my wife, you know, maybe consider subscribing, or I'll put her channel in the description, so if you want to subscribe to her instead of me, I would do that. But I would do both, because then you get book reviews and other historic stuff sometimes.
I don't do any historic stuff.
We have in the past. You got old videos of stuff. And then, you know, there might be a little bit of crossover, you know, when we have time and if we see something together. I like having her with me to get her input and thoughts. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know if you've seen Haunted Mansion or if you're going to.
Thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Snide remarks. Actually, no snide remarks, because we'd be snide back.
Yeah. I mean, you can leave whatever you want, but YouTube might flag you. But yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Ooh, I'm yawning.
That's okay. I yawned the whole video.
I'm gonna take a nap.
Bye.
I don't know why.